Hi there, I'm Paul Murdoch, and the library's asked me to do a wee chat about a book or two that I've written. So I've written quite a few books actually, but I'm going to start with this first one called Talisman. In fact, I'll actually, as we go along, put some pictures up that hopefully will help you kind of visualise the story a bit as well. So this story is called Talisman, and it's about a boy who is up on the moor wondering what's going to happen because his father has disappeared. He lives in a small village in Scotland beside a loch, and he's sitting on a hill above the loch. And he's a bit annoyed because the village he lives in, well, they just think his dad has gone off on purpose. He doesn't believe that. He thinks something bad has happened to his dad. You see, his mum is quite shouty and quite kind of in your face, and the villagers aren't too keen on her, and they just think his dad has had enough and left. But he knows that's not true. And he knows his mum and dad love each other, despite them being a bit fiery at times. So he is up on the hill trying to figure stuff out. So I want to read you that first part, just sort of sets the scene for the book, if you like. And I'll go on after that. I'll just read a wee page. Okay. Chapter 1. The Footprint. High on Bruce Moor, James ran over the rough ground towards the ancient circle of stones, known to the locals as the Jesus Rocks. This random collection of standing stones cast an eerie imprint on an otherwise flawless blue sky. The base of each stone was covered in damp green moss that glistened in the sunlight, while the tops were a confection of rust-coloured lichens and flaking algae. The familiar white graffiti was still daubed in the tallest stone. He could just about make out the words, "Jesus saves." The letters had begun to fade, which added to James' feeling of sadness. He plonked himself down on a springy tussock of heather and gazed out over the loch below. Although the sky was clear and the weather warm, the loch's dark waters filled him with foreboding. Why had his dad left home without saying goodbye? There'd been no explanation, not even a note or an apologetic mumble on an answering machine. All of his dad's clothes were still folded in his cupboard, and his cherished bird books remained undisturbed on their dusty shelves. Quickly wiping away a tear that rolled down his cheek, James tried to imagine what his dad might have said if he'd actually taken the time to say goodbye. "Listen, this, son, I've really enjoyed knowing you for the last 10 years, but I'll have to go away for a while. I'll be back to go bird watching and bike rides, and I'll take you and your mum somewhere exciting, like Ardrossan or maybe Spain. So don't worry, okay?" His dad's deep, reassuring voice still rattled around in James's head, and he wondered how long it would take before he forgot how it sounded. It upset him when his mum refused to talk about his dad's disappearance. She couldn't even say his name without throwing something or shouting. So James had given up. He didn't need the hassle. He just didn't mention it anymore, not to her. It didn't make sense to him. His dad had vanished, yet nobody was doing anything about it. There were no search parties or missing dad posters, nothing on the TV, just embarrassing gossip in the local paper that said things like, "Dunfermline Scout leader David Peck and has, in his wife's words, done a runner." So, he thought, Mum was happy to talk to the press about Dad, but no me. Everyone in Dunfermline knew his mum was fiery and unpredictable, even a little scary. She said exactly what she thought without a care for the consequences. His dad, on the other hand, was the opposite. Reliable, safe, normal, even pretty boring at times. But in a nice sort of way. Doing a runner was completely out of character. So James didn't buy it. He didn't sort of believe his dad had just left on purpose. So he was up on the moor to see if he could find a clue. And as he was up on the moor, he wandered towards these stones, a bit further in towards them, and he saw something that really changed how he thought about his dad's disappearance altogether. James finds a footprint on the moor. But it's not a normal footprint. It's not like a dog or, a deer or a sheep. It's a three-toed footprint. And the toes, well, each one of them are about maybe 2 feet long. So it's a very big, almost like a dinosaur footprint. And then he sees another one and another one. And they're all coming out of the stones and down towards where he was standing. Then he really freaks out. James had an uncomfortable feeling that someone or something was watching him. Brilliant, he whispered to himself. Some three-toed cat monster is going to attack and there's nobody around to save me. He convinced himself that he would die alone and in agony. He pictured his dad pinned to the ground, helpless, seconds from death. Now he was going to disappear too. He could imagine the triumphantly heralded headline, Giant killer feline slaughters father, then eats son for dessert. James steadied himself on one of the standing stones as a feeling of impending doom made his muscles tense and his neck damp with sweat. The unbearable silence seemed to close in on him. There was a low, low rumbling. The ground beneath him began to shake. Screaming, James bolted out of the Jesus rocks and raced across the moor. He ran as fast as he could, onto the path and down through the dark woods without so much as a backwards glance. Unseen branches clawed at his hair and whipped his skinny bare legs. Half running, half stumbling, he skidded over the rocky farm track until, breathless and blinded by sweat, he reached the underpass. As James tries to find his dad, he gets the help of his best friend Craig, and he also takes along a dog called Beero. But he has one special person or thing that helps him, and that is a goldfish wizard called Mendel, who appears when James is looking for his father in the park. Mendel has magic powers, but he only can do them through James. And when James does a spell or anything magical, the spell comes out of his lips in a kind of bubbly kind of word. So you know that it's a spell and the goldfish is making the spell. To get the goldfish about, they strap a little brandy barrel round the dog's neck, fill it with water, it's got a wee window, and the goldfish is in there, ready to help Craig and James whenever they need his help. And they need his help quite a lot. This particular bit I'm going to read you now is where they're going up to the Jesus rocks again with a crystal they've discovered, and Mendel is going to try and take them through the rocks to another world where he thinks his dad may be. But all sorts of creatures have tried to stop him so far, and it's still the case. As they approach the rocks and the hill, this cloud of insects attack them. They think they're midges at first, but they're not. They're kind of bigger and they're nastier. They bite kind of sore. They're called zental moths, and they're from a world called Denton, and they've been sent through the rocks to stop the boys coming through to Denton. I'll read you a bit just now where Mendel tries to help him. James screamed as a large moth bit him. As he did, however, another flew straight into his mouth. He bit down hard, and the creature burst like a grape, filling his mouth with sticky, sweet pus. He spat again. Pah! It tastes of pear drops. I think I'd rather have an actual pear drop, shouted Craig, taking care to shield his mouth. Mendel splashed loudly in his barrel. Pay attention, Craig. Place the crystal on the ground at the base of the biggest stone. Point it north by northwest. This way? Mumbled Craig, one hand still over his mouth. No, the other north by northwest, James scoffed. Towards Ben Larvach. Craig looked hurt. OK, smarty pants. The moths were finding more and more exposed skin, despite Beero snapping up as many as he could. Craig twisted the crystal round towards the mountain at the top of Loch Echte. That's it, said Mendel. Now what? Yelled Craig. His face was covered in probing insects. James felt his head pound. He trembled, then said, with a rush of air. Every insect was gathered up into one massive ball in the sky above their heads before zooming back down the hill and exploding like a firework over the tank woods. James watched in awe as a billion wings, feelers and legs all drifted down onto the treetops like snow. So that's just a flavour of the book Talisman. It's full of adventure, and you have to see if James finds his dad or not, with the help of Craig and Beero the dog, and of course Mendel the wizard goldfish. they have a few other people come through to help them as well, which kind of complicates things. And as they go and they get into Denton, Jings, there's so many creatures there that are really weird and strange that they've got to try and either make friends with or defeat. This creature here is just one of them on the front of the cover. He's called Slevin. He looks a bit scary, and there's a few pictures of him. I'll give you another shot of another picture drawn by an artist called Scott Wallace. This one here is another picture of Slevin sitting on a rooftop. He tries again to stop James from going through the stone circle, and that's another bit in the book as well. So I hope you enjoy the book Talisman, and maybe you could have a go at drawing your own monster. I had a little trick for doing this, and for example, Slevin was just a random word I kind of came up with. And the way to do it is you get basically a blank sheet, okay? And you write some random letters down. So you all know what consonants are and vowels are. So start with a consonant. So let me think of one. P, because I'm Paul. Let's take a vowel. O. Let's take another consonant. R. Let's take another consonant. T. That says port or port. And then let's think about another vowel. I. Porti. And then let's finish with a consonant. Let's say another P. Portip. Portip. A portip is now a creature in my head. And a portip is something I would then draw. I would draw down what I thought a portip might look like. It might have a bottle of port strapped to its waist. It might tip because its legs maybe what's shorter than the other leg. I would think, what would it eat? Well, it would drink probably quite a lot. But what would it eat? It might eat flies or moths. Has it got wings? Maybe not. Has it got scales? Possibly. What does it sound like when it talks? You build up all these attributes and characteristics until you get the whole thing in your head, and then you plant it in the story and make it do stuff and act a certain way. And that's kind of what I did with a lot of the creatures. So you can maybe try that and maybe try drawing your own creature. Make up your own random lettered creature and draw it. And if you want to send your drawings in to the library, or even put them, you could even email them to me, and I'll put an email address at the bottom here you can email them to, and I'll look through them, and let's say the best creature will get a free book. Okay, so there you are. That's an imagination creature competition for a copy of Talisman, and you just have to get some random letters, make up a random name, call a creature whatever you call it, and then draw it and give some description beside it. How big is it? What is that? Does it have a special power? Is it fast? Is it slow? What does it eat? All that kind of stuff. How would it behave? Is it good? Is it bad? Give me that and photograph your picture and email it to me, or send it to the library, and we can look at it and decide which one's the best and hand out a book. So anyway, thank you for letting me talk to you today. I'll be back again with another book soon. Until then, ciao for now. Bye.